Hi, guys. It's really great to see you here on stage. It's already a tradition of several years that we start the startup fair with a founder's talk. We invite usually Lithuanian startup founders, founders of unicorns, of successful startups. And we had Daumantas at the first discussion when we just started this tradition. And I'm really happy that today we also have like foreign guest on stage, Davis, the co-founder of the first Latvian unicorn. And the aim of this chat, I would say, it's not really a discussion, it's more about just knowledge sharing. The aim of this chat is, to share your challenges, your experience, lessons learned, and maybe some tips for those who want to create a successful startup or a unicorn. And Davis, let's start from you, as you're our guest and successful unicorn founder. Let's start from the beginning. When did the Printful started? How you came up with this idea, and maybe you could also tell a little bit about the company itself for those who maybe haven't heard about it.
So very quickly, Printful is a print-on-demand dropshipping service. We print T-shirts and other print products for online stores, customers all over the world, and customers who don't want to buy their own printers and T-shirts, they outsource all that to Printful, and will fulfill those products in their name, and have been doing that for 10 years. So the company started 10 years ago, but actually the journey starts even before that. Like from an early age, I was interested in technology, and when I was 18, I joined what I believed was the most exciting companies in Latvia, so startups. So I started working in startups at 18 at Draugiem, which is still a parent company of Printful. And we actually iterated and tried many startup ideas before arriving at Printful. Over the course of 19 years, we have launched 100 business ideas. About 10 of them actually still remain as businesses, and only one became a unicorn. So that's statistics. And so if you really want to make it big, you have to try a lot of times and fail a lot of times. Out of the 6 businesses that I started working within a group, 2 of them only remain. So 3. Printful at this time and Starter Vitamins. And what led us to the Printful was our own online e-commerce store, Starter Vitamins, where we printed our in-house, our own stuff. And we felt that if we have this need for a good print-on-demand printer ourselves as an online store, Starter Vitamins, where we sell posters, there should be 100,000 or more out there, stores like us. So actually, a lot of the best ideas in the group came of understanding the problem and fixing our own needs. So we created the Printful so other people can create stores like Starter Vitamins. And that inspired us to launch it in 2013. And when we launched it, we sent an email to the customers of Starter Vitamins. And the kind of rest is history. We saw an immediate product market fit. And the first month's revenue was $800 and $1,600 in the next month. And I guess that's another lesson. Like, if you start a company, figure out like what's going to be the business model. How are you going to charge your customers? And ideally, you charge your customers from day one. And you start have revenue coming in very early on.
Great, thank you. And it's not the first time that we hear that not the first idea is usually successful. Like Teslanet founders counted more than 30 ideas before the NordVPN. And I know that TransferGo also started in 2013. And I've never heard your story. Was it the first idea?
Well, first of all, it's great to be back, and it's incredible to see queues outside of this building. I remember when we started 2012, there was a small group of enthusiasts. Many of them are still actually here today, so this event is very special, and it's great to be here. Our story started in September 18th, 4 a.m., 2012. This is where we launched our product. We raised $50K from Practica Capital, who I think is also here. And yeah, that was a different time and different world, and time flies. And now, like this month, we're celebrating our 11th birthday.
Congrats on that.
So yeah, and I can see, thank you. So, and like, I remember when we were doing our initial business plans, and this is what my co-founder said, which I think is quite true. We always overestimate what we can do in the short term. So we're always behind the short-term plan, but we had no idea what we can do in the long term. And I would say the first 3 years was a grind, undercapitalized, competing against guys that have 10 times more money. And we needed capital because we didn't get money up front. Unlike many other bigger companies in Lithuania, they get a subscription, they get money up front, and then they serve the customer. We always have to pay in advance for every single customer, and competing in probably one of the most competitive markets in Europe, which was cross-border payments, remittances. You know many of our competitors probably as well as us. So, but we survived the first 3 years, and then after 2016, the story really took off, and between then and now, we probably grew 20 times. So years, they maybe speak about quite a long, decades, a long time, but none of that is linear. So like the last 3 years were multiple times more growth, more progress than the previous 3. So this is how we look at it. It's all about figuring out how to capture that momentum and use the most of it. And that's next years for us, because company has never been stronger, and we're not yet a unicorn. I think becoming a unicorn in a post-correction world will be a true testament of great companies, because unicorns before 2021 and unicorns after, I think, will be very different, because the market has changed profoundly, but I think we can talk about that.
Okay, Vytautas, it didn't took you so long to become a unicorn, or what's the story behind? When did you start the Surfshark, and how the idea came up?
So throughout my life, I was always somehow involved in security. Like when I was 16, I was already one of the, I think, differences from when I talk to other people. They go to universities and whatnot, and my story of life was I never actually stepped my foot in the university, which I don't advise. I think I missed on a lot of good fun. But in those early days, I was kind of like creating small startups in local cities here, mostly internet provider, but also on the part-time I was kind of like considered myself as a hacker in a sense when it was still cool. Now it's kind of like it has this criminal background. Then it was a very different environment. So privacy and security was always my passion, and then there was 10 years of just traveling abroad and working with and creating some other businesses which were not necessarily related to cybersecurity. And in 2017, I came back to Lithuania, and I saw the growth, especially also in the VPN segment. But one thing I realized was that a lot of those products were still very, I would say, techy, in a sense that the language they used was targeting mostly like very advanced users, military-grade encryption, the protocols and whatnot. And for me, the Apple was always an inspiration of how you can create products which are very attractive, marketable to regular person, but behind the scenes you still have a very strong technology like Unix, etc. So this is where I saw opportunity, and that's how Surfshark came to be. It intentionally never had any complicated language. I didn't name it Surfshark VPN or anything. It was for the regular folk on the street. And the first 3 years, I was saying that with all of us here would share that they're the most difficult ones. You are basically you're working 12, 14 hours and just trying to survive. And I think in my story, I think the success of Surfshark is majority of it was I managed to attract a great team. And what I realized through those 4 or 5 years, if you get a good team behind, then your job is basically not to interfere as much as possible, because as a founder, you're so willing to kind of like go there and steer your own ideas, which are not necessarily the best ones. And that team actually helped, grow Surfshark to the size where we became one of the leaders in the VPN industry. And then a year ago, Tom, who is the founder of Nord Security, I know him from the childhood. We grew up on IRC chats. And then we decided that actually having 2 players in the market and just doing all kinds of marketing strategies together would actually be a very strong synergies. And that's how we decided to merge and then raise the first round and becoming 2 of those companies, Nord Security and Surfshark, the second unicorn in Lithuania. Yeah, but other than for the learnings, I think one of the differences in I think in our story is that we're very frugal in a sense that we raised our first round very, very late. We never raised any capital initially, and I think if I would be looking into startups who are kind of like have potential to succeed, I would always look into founders who have this mentality rather than focusing on fundraising from the basically very, very early days where they still haven't got a single sale. So having this grind and frugality is, for me, I think it's very important if you want to kind of like succeed in the long term.
So that's one of the strengths of our ecosystem, that we kind of have a lot of startups that are bootstrapping, especially top 20 startups. And even, especially now when the fundraising is becoming a bit more, difficult, it's really important. And as Daumantas mentioned, this growing a startup isn't like straight line. I believe that there were a lot of ups and downs and a lot of challenges along the road. Could you maybe share your experience? What were the biggest challenges, the biggest lessons that you would maybe also give some advices from that, what you experienced, Davis?
Yeah, I want to reiterate on the point of being scrappy a little bit as well. We also raised really late. We only raised money when COVID hit and really needed a lot of extra capital, open new fulfillment centers and buy printers. But before that, the first few years, I had to go to Los Angeles a lot because we started in Los Angeles and that was our first fulfillment center. And I was just trying to find the cheapest way possible to stay. And I stayed at this American Latvian grandmother's house just to save money. And sometimes some actors from Latvia came in, some other startup folks, and we could chat about business. But I mean, only after we did like 10 million dollars in revenue, we started, having a proper Airbnb. Otherwise, we were really scrappy trying to save money everywhere we can. On the topic of lessons, I think a lot of challenge for us was that we always had employees in the US. Still to this day, there's 1,000 employees for Printful that work in the United States and America. And a lot of things was cultural education, like how you can bridge the Latvian and American cultures. And what helped us also is hiring a lot of American, Canadian, and Australian Latvians who, for some reason went there after the war, but really wanted to reconnect back with their roots in Latvia. So they helped bridge that culture back. Also, our independent board director is American Latvian, and he also helps to bridge the American and Latvian culture in there. And also what helped us in initial days, that a lot of people from, I think, also Lithuania are too humble. They build a great product and expect that it's going to sell itself. But when we brought in as a first marketing hires for our team, they were Canadian and Australian Latvians. So they were native speakers. Our language was really great. On our website, I asked an Australian Latvian to speak with an American accent because that was our target market. It also just established our marketing on a really high level basis, because sometimes you go on to, let's say, a Latvian or on a Baltic website, it's Langlish, it's broken English. So I was really focused on marketing from an early days, because I'm a firm believer that a great product is not going to sell itself. You need to invest in sales and marketing, and that's often that we lack in companies here. And if you can't find people like that, then if you're not a marketing guy, hire somebody from outside. That's my recommendation.
Great, thank you. Daumantas, we've talked a little bit backstage, and since like 4 years ago, since we talked on this stage, you've mentioned that TransferGo became a profitable company, which is also a thing to congratulate. And maybe you could share some, the biggest challenges, toughest moments until achieving this.
Plenty. Like when you're dependent on other people's views, that's never a good position to be in. And as I said, for our business model, it's difficult to scale it without external capital, just because of how economics work. So even though we were bootstrapped, I think the moment we raised now probably close to 100, which is not a lot. Others have raised more, but the real satisfaction for me came in when we actually became independent of other people's perspective and became profitable and largely in control. And I think that is what I would like to say, and my tip to early stage companies as well, is that we tend to be very centric around the company itself, because we think that as long as we build a great business, we will raise money. This is the biggest lie in the world, that you will build a great business and you will raise money if you need the money, of course. You have to also spend a lot of time understanding the market, the capital markets itself, how they are progressing and where they're going. Because what it takes to raise money in 2021 versus now is completely different, right? The companies were overvalued, now they're undervalued. And if you don't get that dynamic, you will focus and you won't see the full picture. And my recommendation is for any CEO is to spend enough time in the market, have your trusted financial banker advisors, they can navigate you, have these phone chats, have these conversations to understand where the market is going, because you may be just looking at the past or not preparing for the future when it comes to what actually takes for you to raise money. And if you are fortunate enough and you don't have to raise money, that's a different story. But what I see is that majority of the companies still need external capital from early days. It doesn't matter how frugal they are. So I think spend the time understanding the market. That is super important, because if you're playing against the market, if you're optimizing growth when everyone is looking at profit, and vice versa, if you're not playing that game, you will struggle and you will never know what hit you. So that's our learning, and the moment when we start playing the market better, then the results were a bit different.
Vytautas, what were your biggest lessons learned?
I think for us, one of the bigger challenges in the early days was actually when you're a new player in the market, and where the market is already saturated. So when Surfshark came to life, there were already at least 10, 12 players. And the hardest in our vertical, there's a substantial amount of basically growth comes from partners, being all kinds of affiliates, top websites, etc. And one thing I realized actually initially, it was that all of those players tried to get to those top publishers like CNET, Tech Radars, and whatnot by using the standard kind of approaches. You email them and they just ignore you, and then you call them and they say, "Yeah, we had 10 brands like yours already, and why would we want to work with you, etc." So. But the thing what worked for us was actually kind of almost like fake it till you make it, in a sense that we would do very unconventional strategies how we would get onto those publishers. And the Israelis intelligently have a saying that if the door is locked for you, then you climb through the window. And that's how we kind of approached it. So, for example, one of the stories we had, we wanted to get onto the CNET. CNET is a very big publisher in the US. And so how we met, of course, they were ignoring us because we were just nobody and they were too big. So we found out where the CNET, which conferences they were attending. And we found out that the CNET publishers were actually going to one particular event, which was some kind of a payment company pitch. So we went in there into that event and just accidentally bumped into them accidentally, and then said, "Oh, how are you? Who are you?" And they said, "Oh, we are from CNET." We said, "Oh, we are from Surfshark, whatever. What are you doing here?" Pretending we don't know them, whatever. And so slowly kind of get conversation going. And but actually to believe that you're gonna make this work, you fly to US, you actually basically follow them in real time where they're going, actually stalking them in a sense, and at the end of the day, pretending that you don't know them, and then convincing them to have a breakfast with you, and then after then kind of getting into this personal relationship and finally convincing them to put us on the list is I think a very fundamental skill you need to develop as a founder, or because you need to somehow get the edge ahead of all the other players, and just doing the same thing everyone is doing will not suffice. So for me, that was kind of the biggest learning, that there's always a way. There's I often see that sometimes when we grew now, there's a bigger teams, and sometimes some team says, "Oh, we didn't do that because we emailed and they didn't respond." And what? Is it actually that's it? You gave up? Have you tried? I don't know, stalking them, through LinkedIn, calling them, pretending to be a girl, whatever, just all kinds of stuff. And after that, you still will get them, So just be persistent, and maybe to oppose the previous view, I think if the founders will put so much effort into like chasing, actually both in product and marketing, and success-wise, rather than maybe thinking that much about fundraising, etc., that will get you ahead, because the money you will raise, like, it will disappear like that. And I think if you don't do the previous work, that money is really not that important. So I always advise the people around me, just as David said, marketing is super important, no matter how much product guy you are. Because I myself always was a product guy, and I started Surfshark. I was like, I have no idea about marketing. I need to learn it, because I realized that if I'm not gonna crack it, then it's not gonna work. So yeah, marketing definitely is something you have to do hard, and yeah.
And it all sounds really like difficult and complicated, with a lot of challenges, difficult early years, a lot of work, bumps along the road. Maybe, so what's driving you? Maybe you could share some inspiration. Why are you doing this, and what drives you, Daumantas?
Well, it's the best job in the world, frankly speaking, because all the years that you put in, the company actually gives you back multiple times more, in terms of the people that you meet, in terms of experiences you have, in terms of exposure. I mean, it's worthwhile, but you really have to love it. And it's not for everyone, because you have to have that ability to build a thick skin very fast. Otherwise, being lonely at the top thing gets very lonely at lonely times. And, if you're especially leader, it's go down to what you will do the next day, where you wake up and you go and do things, or you feel sorry for yourself and the rest of the company and not go anywhere. So be ready for that. But if you love it, you will, time will fly, and it's worthwhile, because, now where we are, we have close to 400 people in the company. We have 20 nationalities. It has become an organism. It has become a child that's 11 years old, and it's working on its own. Like, it's magical to see, like, you're probably not in most meetings, definitely not in most meetings, not in most action happening, and the culture that you're able to build, you can see them delivering. That's a very magical, actually, perspective, and it's rare. You have to be a founder or CEO to see that. So I think it's really worthwhile the effort.
Is it not scary to grow, from small team up to like 400,000 employees?
It is. The scary bit is not that. The scary bit is realizing that at some point you realize that it's no longer a joke, meaning that it's a lot of people that depend on your decisions, and you have to step up, and you have to really, you have a lot of young guys that start, a lot of hungry guys, a lot of hustlers, and you grow, and you have to, your personal learning curve as a CEO needs to be ahead of them, because they ultimately rely on you when things get tough, and things always get tough. So that responsibility, there's quite a bit of burden, but I wouldn't call it scary. You just need to embrace it.
I would add that one of the best things in being a founder, CEO, sometimes is that the people around you, right? In the 10 years, I hired people who were entry level, started in roles like customer service, and really then progressed and became executive management positions, C-level positions. Of course, we mixed those outside as well, but gave me the most motivation, and how I felt in the company was just seeing those people grow, just all these awesome people that are ready to make something special happen. As well as being from a smaller country like Latvia, we could be the first in many things, right? When we, for instance, open up our Mexico facility, we can say we're the biggest Latvian company in Mexico, and we're the biggest Latvian company in US by employee count and stuff like that. So that was also something that felt special, and a lot of people who came to Printful, at least in Latvia, they were inspired by that. They really saw us as this Latvian founded company to make really a mark in our industry in the world, and that's another really, really fun thing to do. And in early days, I could, bring the team, and we would, go to the United States and work in our fulfillment centers directly where our employees worked in printers and etc. And we would stay for like 2 weeks in an Airbnb and we would travel around the US, and that was all fun. So we worked hard, but we also like remembered to have fun, which we kept as a value at Printful to this day.
So there is this culture, work hard, party harder in a startups world?
Never.
No?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I've been to Kilohealth office, so it seems, pretty amazing. Vytautas.
Yeah. For me, I think the best parts is, the guys already touched on a few, and I definitely agree on those. I think one is obviously, for me, it's why not. I think the key question is why not? Because for me personally, maybe for you guys it's different, but for me personally, it's actually about, I recently realized that the meaning of life for me is actually growing. If I stop, it's like I get into depression quickly. So the fastest way to actually grow is to surround people around you who are actually better than you, and that's how it happens when you hire people. You want them to do things you don't understand, and this is the best, like from the personal point of view, the best way to grow. And the second thing is also to what Davis was saying as well. There's a sense of proudness in a sense when you can present Lithuania on the global arena. And actually, I remember 10 years ago, or 6 years ago, when we started Surfshark, we actually initially intentionally kind of like even tried to hide the fact that we're from Lithuania, because we were worried that it would kind of, especially in the US, it would be perceived as a not necessarily kind of like, I don't know, East European, whatever business then. And those fears were unfounded. But then we wanted kind of to stack every single odds again for us. So we didn't want to risk. But now when you're able to talk everywhere about, us being, from Lithuania, and Lithuania being the hub of it, of all the great startups, etc., and seeing all those people you before kind of like looked, they seemed so serious and important people, and them now coming here to Lithuania and praising us is the best feeling in the world for me.
And Davis, now you're actively investing into other startups, and I think you see a lot of them, and you see the things from different angle, different perspective. Maybe you have also some tips for the startups that are attending the event, how to approach investors or what to look at their presentations and pitches.
At Draugiem Group, we're also now starting to invest in post-revenue companies. So I'm seeing some of them. I think one of the challenges, I think both in Latvia and Lithuania, we're a bit behind in sort of our development in Estonia. So there hasn't been a lot of exits. So there's, I think, in a sense, when you're looking forward over the next 10 years, Latvia and Lithuania should be the places where there are going to be maybe even better returns than Estonia, because Estonia is ahead and it's even already more competitive. But once some of these really larger companies like Nord Security, Surfshark, and now Tesonet, and etc., some of people graduate from those companies and they've seen how they scaled, and they, I think, has a potential to be a good founders in some of these other companies. But I think even if you have maybe not the greatest presentation, nothing beats good traction, right? So if you have really, customers that love you, and there's, your numbers really go up to the right, you will be able to attract investment. But don't over-focus on, again, investment, because I'm very glad that we focused on trying to be break-even or profitable from an early on that allow us to make extremely fast decisions. And I didn't have to spend like a half of a year fundraising. I met some of the other founders in Latvia. They spend like half of or more of the time fundraising. It really distracts the time from that what you need to put in a business as well. But generally, traction, nothing is going to be great traction. And my pet peeve is marketing and, good English and stuff like that. So make sure at least run a spell check on your presentation, or have somebody who's an American English expert take a look at your presentation before you send it off.
Great, thanks. And we still have a few minutes to summarize, 5 minutes. the last words, what you would like to say, for those who have an idea and want to start building a startup, for those who are already along the road and maybe, not feeling so good at the moment and thinking where to turn right now. So each of you, could you share some?
Well, at least what we see in the market right now, there is a correction happening, and correction will take time. So my advice is be patient. Reality is that if you need to raise money, of course, most VCs are on holiday right now. They are not telling you this, but many of them are, especially mid to late stage. So, what you need to understand and really wait for the market to correct itself. And because there was so much capital put in, bad companies are not dying fast enough, so the entire food chain is stuck. It's difficult for investors later stage to raise money. It's difficult for later stage startups to raise money. I'm talking about not seed or earlier, but a bit later. So be patient and use this time to build a great business, because there's a lot of M&A opportunities that haven't existed before because of this crunch, and play the game smartly, be patient. Because as long as you are in control and you have a good business, this is going to be an opportunity for you, this market. But the world of 2021 is over, and it's not coming back, I think, in the next 3 to 4 years.
Think of other reasons why you want to start a company just to make money. You will very likely need to do for like what we have done almost 10 years, right? You 11, 10, and then you as well. And so you will need to hold that motivation for a long term. It needs to be more than making money and things like that. Otherwise, I think it's also okay to spend a bit of years working for a technology company that you like. And that's how I did it. Like, I joined the company first before we became founding these ideas. So I think that's a good path as well to take to gain an experience before jumping straight into your entrepreneurship journey.
Okay. I think from my point of view, we have the thing with one of the values, although we hate this word and at Surfshark, but it's we say that humbleness does great things, as in the sense that if you go in humble starting your company and actually not chase money, etc., but just be persistent and actually not idolize maybe the founders such as us, and just think that everything can be learned. Nothing is actually complicated. Throughout my last 6 years, I was numerous times in the positions where I said, wow, this is I don't know, whether it's marketing topic or a finance topic, which I don't understand, but there's nothing that's complicated which cannot be learned by persistence and humbleness. So I think that's my I think advice: just be stubborn and but also humble. Don't come in thinking that you can kind of win the world easily. It's gonna be difficult, and when you have your expectations lower, it's the fall is maybe not that painful.
Okay, thanks a lot. So to wrap it up, if you have an idea and want to build a company, successful company or a unicorn, it will be difficult, especially in the beginning, but it's really interesting and becoming more and more interesting, and is driving these guys. And what you didn't mention, and I would like to say that there is also a lot of governmental support for startups, and a lot of governmental money. So you should also look for that. And that's why Startup Lithuania and Innovation Agency is here for you. Thank you.
Thank you.